Hello, Jillian. Nice to see you. For those watching, I'm Lawrence Knott. I'm a coach and therapist. I work with people with a range of issues, and producing these little conversations and recording them, putting them on YouTube for various subjects. Something that came up for me that I wanted to be able to help my own clients with specific issues they were dealing with in life. And today's subject is about loss and separation. And it's something that comes up obviously with my clients in terms of things going on in their life, whether it is through bereavement, getting over a marriage, a divorce, or feeling like there's something in their life that they have lost something and they want to move on from it. And that can often be a feeling of stuckness. So I'm going to pass over to Gillian Fox, to introduce herself before we have our conversation. Hello, Gillian.
Hi, Lawrence, and thank you so much for inviting me. We were talking just before we started, and I said, even just reflecting on what we might talk about in this conversation brought something up for me that I hadn't seen before. So at any moment, there's that space for new thought, for new insight, and that's what really excites me about doing these conversations with people. And so if I can just briefly introduce myself, my name's Gillian Fox. I work with clients who have been through bereavement or through separation, divorce, loss of a business. There's lots of different styles of loss and separation, which we've touched on already. And for my own personal background, I lost my husband 18 years ago. And that was at a point in my life where we were both living the dream, retired early, sailing around the world on a boat, started to build a house in Portugal. And suddenly he wasn't there anymore. He died. He had a brain tumour. So it was a very short space of time from getting that diagnosis, although obviously stuff had been going on beforehand that we hadn't really realised what was going on, to suddenly being alone in a foreign country with a half-built house, a boat in a marina, and a really pathetic grasp of the Portuguese language and local builders helping me out on site. And I guess I've got two choices. I either sit in a corner and I cry, or I get up and I get on with it, and I keep the promise that I'd given Jeff before he died that I would actually finish the house. And so that was my focus for several years, in fact. And the point I'm coming to is that what I discovered was this huge inner strength that I never knew I had, to deal with what was going on and to overcome, if you like to use the word, obstacles and all the things that cropped up, and to suddenly stand back and go, I never knew I could do that. I didn't know I had that in me, and I learned so much. I had a load of help. Couldn't have done it by myself. And so when I found out about 3 principles, it was like, I already know this. I know we've got innate health. I know we've got this inner strength, this spark inside of us, all of us. We can do so much more. We can be so much more. And so for me, that huge loss, shock, turned into something that, if you like, was very precious, if that makes any sense at all.
It was precious in what way? What did you see with that?
It's precious in that it's a life experience. It happened. It was a gift, if you like, that I was given, not one I would have chosen. Absolutely not. But through that gift, I was able to access so much more of me, of this energy, this inner strength that I talk about. And to then experience that and know that and be able to talk to other people that have been in the same position or are going through that, and know that, we're always okay. Physical body maybe not, but that spirit, that inner self, that us, that's always going to be okay. Whatever's thrown at us, it's always going to be around in whatever form or energy it takes at that time. Yeah.
And that thing at your core, at your essence, it's interesting when you sort of say, when I discovered the 3 principles, mind, consciousness and how the mind really does operate, it all made sense. You were able to reflect and almost have, reverse engineered insights about previous insights you'd had. I mean, what you said about, it was when you looked back, before you discovered the principles, that you had seen and reflected upon, I am resilient. And it's almost after the fact that people notice what they've got going for them, how they do dig deep, access those resources. And I think it comes up with other conversations I have, other coaching contexts. People do tap into something when they don't let their thoughts get in the way, or they surprise themselves. So was that the case for you when you sort of look back and thought, wow, how did I do that? As in, if you tried to think about what you had to do and the cycle that you were maybe going to go through when you look at different models, it might have looked very different.
Totally. Yes, I'm with you on that one. I kind of look back and go, was that me? Did I do that? Who's the I that's doing it? Okay, there's another conversation. But yes, if I'd known what was going to happen before it happened, I would have already been in that corner and I wouldn't have got out of it. I'd just gone, no, I can never cope with this. But when you're thrown into, it's like being thrown into a swimming pool, I guess. Sink or swim, and there's innate buoyancy that comes along and goes, okay, I may go round and round in circles, I may struggle to keep afloat at sometimes, I may get hit by these waves of grief or whatever. But you get on with it because there's the clarity of just getting on with it. There's the put one foot in front of the other and do something, on a practical level, even go and get the bricks from the builders, or don't just sit and think about, oh, I really should get the bricks from the builders. But if I do that, I'm going to have this struggling conversation. I don't know the language, because that instinct to go and get the bricks is thought, isn't it? And if we act on that, we don't put loads and loads of other layers of thinking and give ourselves all sorts of reasons to why not. And that's so common in other stuff we do in life, even picking up the phone to make a sales conversation or whatever, or a friend that we haven't spoken to for ages. If we make up a story about, oh, they're not going to want to talk to me because I haven't spoken to them for ages, and blah, blah, blah. Whereas we just go, oh, they just came into my mind. I'm going to pick phone up, make call. And what normally happens is, oh, fantastic, how are you? Great to hear from you.
Yeah. And that sort of instinctive action, just back, I read your book, Promise Me. I would love that. What you're talking about there, the promise you made to finish the house. It's almost like it gave you a purpose and a focus, but it was still the shock. I'm wondering other people where it isn't so much of a shock. There is more of a leading, or they haven't got that purpose. They haven't able to find it, and they are in that initial place. When you work with people, what's your starting point and understanding their journey up until that day?
Yeah, I think the phrase "meeting them where they're at" is a great one, because until I find out what is their understanding of how the world works, what is their understanding of what's happened, where do they think their experience is coming from? Until I know that, whatever I say is not going to work. So I'm just curious about how's this occurring for you? What are you feeling? Almost what's the story that you've got around it? And I don't mean that in a nasty way, but we all do create the stories of our life. And, I worked with one lady who had lost a friend a few years ago. And she was stuck totally in, it's not fair, I'll never get over this. She was my best friend. I miss her so much. I don't know how I'll ever live without her. Those usual things that come up for us. So we just explored, where's that coming from? You know, and she really, really got, I used the cloud metaphor, you know, thoughts come in and sometimes the clouds skip straight past us, or sometimes it gets stuck. And then, boy, do we get involved in it, you know, and it becomes true for us. I will never get over this, etc., etc. And just exploring that, going, is that true? You know, other times when you're not thinking about your friend, and just getting people to pause and go, yeah, isn't that interesting? And then suddenly it's like the curtains part, and people see that there's always a possibility for some new thought to come in. You know, it's happening all the time. We don't see it. You know, that iceberg thing that Jamie talks about, 11% above the surface, whatever percentage below the surface. You know, that's all the thoughts we don't see. And we just grab onto some of them that come into our consciousness and get hold of them, chew on them, and really have a good time with them. But, you know, we went in 6 sessions from total stuckness to, and I love this story and I tell it a lot. Her words were, I was lying in bed this morning thinking about my friend, and it's as though she just passed past me and she just brushed my face, and I knew she was okay, and I smiled and I remembered her, and it was all right. You know, that's huge. If people can get from there to there in 6 sessions, hour and a half each session, you know, that is precious. That is life-changing for them, because it means that's where the moving on starts. That's where we don't have to forget people or whatever. But we can't and we shouldn't live our lives in that past. You know, if there's a flow to life, there's an energy that moves us through it. And we all know where the end is going to be. You know, nobody gets out of this alive. And so if we can enjoy our journey, even when other people's has physically stopped, then that's what, you know, it's just moment by moment, isn't it? There's no past, there's no future, it's not linear. And if we can enjoy what we've got now, what we're looking at now, if the sun's shining here, it's a beautiful day. If I can appreciate that without sad thoughts always being on my shoulder, always being a burden to me, then that's huge for people. It's huge for me.
Yeah. More and more I do find with all my clients, all situations, the answer always does seem to lie in the present moment. My go-to when the conversation seems to be getting a bit stuck, where are we right now? Where am I? Where is their experience? It's interesting, everything you're talking about there, you know, pointing someone towards their experience, enabling insight to come out. We haven't used any of the labels. We haven't talked about a grief or bereavement cycle. You know, you can find it. I'm curious that when someone comes to you, or maybe in your own experience, the conditioning that surrounds us, the invisible conditioning, like, well, I'm going to be in this initial shock, then I'm going to be angry, then I might get depressed. And it's whether people are conforming to that conditioning, or actually it is so innate within us to grieve in our own way. But how long it takes, or whatever it is, I think something I read on your website about it takes as long as it takes. But having the support of someone else, and as I understand it, the way I work with people now to help them understand how the mind works, it's not following a process, not attaching to labels, not saying I'm feeling this now, and then saying, well, that means I need to change this or process it in a certain way. But what I'm interested there is how you relate to the other approaches to supporting people around bereavement and loss, and the models and theories, where working through the principles, it's nice to have an awareness of all those, but in some ways, they're not relevant because there's one universal solution.
I mean, I've read Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's On Death and Dying, and at the time she wrote it, she was kind of saying, yes, there's all these stages. And I have heard that since then she's kind of had a rethink and said it doesn't have to be that particular, sequence. And I think what I talked about earlier, and what I've experienced since when I lost a friend, it all happened much more quickly. I was furious with this friend for dying. He wasn't that old. And it was a stupid, stupid accident. And the guy was, he loved, extreme sports and things like that. And it was a very, very stupid, mundane, if you like, accident that he died in. And so I spent a couple of days really upset, really angry, but just letting it happen. Not saying, oh, this is not in the right order. I must do this denial thing before I can go into this anger thing. It's just, this is what came out. And then kind of trusting, okay, this has happened. I'm not in control. I don't get to say, this shouldn't have happened now. Who am I to say that? And that kind of acceptance, the whole thing just happened really, really quickly. So to answer your question, I don't use steps or processes because it does take as long as it takes. It takes as long as it takes for us to see where our experience of that loss is coming from, to understand how we are creating the reality of that loss. And just seeing that is just the key to it. It's I've got this feeling of huge sadness. I've got some sad thinking about this. That's fine. I don't need to get involved in that. I know what's going on. It will pass. And I'll have a moment of blissful happiness remembering something that was a wonderful experience that person and I shared, for example. And isn't it interesting how we tend not to dissect that happiness, but we spend a lot of time in dissecting sadness. I really find this fascinating because it's coming from the same place. It's the same thing happening. But it's like bad and wrong to be upset or to feel bad about something. Oh, that's great. I don't need to worry about that. I'm happy. La la la. Same thing.
It's funny you should say that. I've been to clients this week. In relation to what you don't analyse, just like you say, don't analyse when things are going well. And it's interesting, it probably came up from reading the George Bransky relationship handbook about how we're very similar as human beings when we're in the flow of life. We're loving, compassionate, open. We've got a lot more in common when there's nothing in the way of our experience. And yeah, there's a positive feeling, there's a good feeling. We don't analyse. And we don't have to force our way into that. And that was the big thing for me in discovering the principle a year or two ago. I knew instinctively I didn't have to, it was there underneath, always there. It's only what stops me being within my well-being. I'm doing a talk actually, corporate talk on wellness. I'm going to talk about well-being. What is that well-being? And for me, my starting point is that what I've got inside that is always there, just as you were saying, it just gets obscured. And for some people, I guess, it can be quite challenging to be able to hear that on that deeper level. There's something that was coming up in my mind as you were talking is about when people, they've lost all meaning. Their meaning was that relationship, that long marriage. And, you know, in the language of the three principles, seeing it from an outside-in perspective. Their well-being was 100% on the marriage or the other person. And they could point to all the reasons why it made them happy, safe, secure. And now that's just been taken away. What is left? How do you work with people that come in with just such, it's like, look, where is the meaning in my life?
And it's the you know, it's what Sydney Banks says about there's nothing outside that can help us, and there's nothing outside that can hurt us, because we're making up what's outside. If you like, our experience is coming through thought, feeling, connection. So with loss, what we experience is the I experiences separation, doesn't it? You know, and yes, you're right. You know, if we put our happiness on somebody else, then we're going to feel the lack of happiness when that person's not there. And it's, you know, it's lovely to be around somebody that you love, isn't it? It's great, but it doesn't detract from the fact that we are already whole. You know, we are all connected to the oneness, and it's the I that thinks it's separate, that thinks it needs another person or whatever else to be whole. And death, loss brings that home to us, that we are each, in our I identity, if you like, separate, but actually we're not. You know, we're all part of this mind. Mind is flowing through us, this energy. And actually that's what I was thinking about this morning was, is part of the sadness of death that we suddenly remember what home with a capital H is like, and what our I-ness is taking us away from. You know, and so when I'm working with people, I know they've got that going for them. I know they're not separate. And how I point them towards glimpsing that, insightfully seeing something, is individual to each person. It's, you know, there's no prescriptive conversation here, is there? It's like what we're talking about is fairly free-flowing. We had a topic, but we're sort of going, oh, over here, over there. And it's the same when you're working with clients. But I know that they're part of the oneness. I know they are whole, complete, perfect, and they're okay. They just don't know it in that moment. So that's what I hold. And then I let the rest unfold and the conversation unfold.
That's beautiful. The way I describe it for me is that when I am in, just, you know, you described it beautifully there. When I'm in that place, my job as a coach therapist is to just help someone get those glimpses, those rays of light you mentioned on your website. Seen it described in that way. And being present to my experience in the moment is going to help me point someone to those rays of light. And maybe, insightfully, it will happen for them. I talk about, you know, when I'm working with someone, it's like, look, something might come up in this conversation right now. Someone watching this might have an insight, but it can be at the most innocuous moment at time. And I suppose where I'm leading there is when people between sessions, you mentioned someone, over 6 sessions, it's going out back into life. That's where I'll call it a therapeutic process, but where that innate understanding begins to reveal itself and people begin to become free, just a little bit free of the thinking of loss and separation. What shows up for you when clients like report back?
I love it. I love it because, yeah, it's like you say, the rubber hits the road when they go away. And I love when clients say, it's really interesting, but normally I'd have reacted like this. But do you know what happened? And then they'll tell me a story about how it was different. And of course, I'll say, what do you make of that? Or some similar coaching-y type question. But they've already had the insight. It occurred to them to do something or behave in a different way. Where did that come from? How interesting. And for them to realize that the way they normally are in a situation doesn't have to always be that way. Chip Chipman was talking at a seminar I attended back in June about, when we sort of come into this physical body, we've got this beautiful pure ego, if you like. There's nothing blemishing it or blotting it, and then we start living and we start sticking labels on ourselves. Oh, I'm shy. Oh, I don't like big crowds. Or somebody else comes along and sticks a label on. So we end up like a big snowball with all these labels, like sticky yellow labels, And then we start to find out about this. And we realize those labels we don't even have to take them off. They'll disappear by themselves, because that's not who we really are. That's the story that we and other people have made up about how I am. Again, back to that separate thing that goes on. And when clients go away and come back and say, you never guess what happened? I was sitting having a cup of coffee and I thought about the person that was dead. And I smiled. And I can't really understand that, because normally I'd be in floods of tears. That's the conversation. That's what they're starting to see. It's like the curtains are opening to the possibility of new thought. Yeah. And they weren't accessing memory thought. They weren't, that feeling that comes with a memory, a sad memory comes with a feeling, doesn't it? Feeling, indication of our thinking in the moment. Suddenly we've got this memory in front of us and it comes with a feeling. But that's the old feeling that goes with the old memory. And it's possible for new thought and new memory to come in and not replace it, but to have a different experience of the same thing. That's transformational.
That is beautiful. And that just does a client I had recently where it was almost like the loss of innocence, getting over a marriage, but it was the way, just as you said it there. He said, yeah, I didn't want to go back and do this thing. Here in St. Lucia, there's some opportunity to do some beautiful things. I didn't want to do that because it would have made me sad. That was going into the memory. And actually, that was her wisdom speaking. She wasn't ready to do it. And then after, being here, doing some work with me, she was ready. And then she was angry. It's like, why didn't I do it before? And that's where she had the insight. It would have made me sad. So it was a new thought that she had. and she was ready to see it in a completely different light. And that wasn't many reframing cognitive. It just was bubbling under, just emerged. And another thing I heard is that for anyone watching this that hasn't engaged the support of anyone, that resilience is there. It's kicking in. I think sometimes maybe people suppress it. So that story you told, never guess what happened. Well, people may be conditioned, and through the labels they have and they understand and how they saw another family member grieve, that, start getting some guilty thinking about it. I shouldn't be allowed to just have that moment of new thought. Oh no, I should be more depressed. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we weigh ourselves down with more thought. But when there's someone to point it out, that's really powerful. Because people question why they're feeling good sometimes.
Aren't we funny? Aren't we funny human beings? Yeah.
I shouldn't be feeling like this. There's a cause and effect, and there's no damn good reason why I feel absolutely fine today.
I think that's where gratitude comes in. Just catching that. I feel fine today. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Don't question it. Just go, it's almost like, thank you. Thank you for this moment. And just relish the moment, while it's there. Because it's a bit like that, isn't it? It's a bit of a roller coaster. But wow, the more we stand and stare, the more we take the time to appreciate that lovely moment. There seem to be more of them.
Yeah. I use it so often with clients now. I just mentioned George Pransky's line about being grateful for the highs.
Yes.
Then we're more likely to bounce back when the lows are there. And for someone on their journey from separation, it's always keeping sight of the hope that
Yeah.
Life's going to be different. All those certainties, but being okay with it being a new chapter. So bringing it back to your story at the start.
Yeah, Sydney Banks said, life is a contact sport.
So just think about wrapping up. Just thinking about when people they're going to be all right, when you've done some work with them. When you knew, it's like, yeah, I'm going to be all right. Life's going to be different, very different. As you mentioned in your book, all the different doors that open, and the happy little accidents, the people we meet along the way, or for our clients, whether it is just reacquainting with old friends or finding a new hobby. There's so much out there.
And again, it's that awareness of it's always out there. There will always be people that come along that become friends. There's always going to be somebody that will be around if we trust they're going to be around to help. Somebody will turn up right in front of our nose and go, oh, I can do that for you. That's what I find fascinating. As I said before, the more I trust this innate system, if you like, the more it rewards me with the things I seem to find, the pebbles on the beach that I pick up, if you like, the road that sparkles a little bit more brightly than the other fork in the road. And it doesn't matter, if I go down that fork and I come back to a roundabout, oh well, there'll have been an experience down there and nothing's wrong. It's all just a journey. To use that hackneyed phrase. life's rich pattern. It's a ride. Just is. Doesn't matter. Goes up and down, round and round. It's very brightly coloured. Quote Bill Hicks. Yeah, enjoy it. Enjoy the highs and the lows, because we can't expect the highs all the time. It's not what it's all about. But when we know where our experience of both the highs and the lows comes from, boy, does that help.
Like you said, that gratitude that comes from knowing that I have this gift. We can call it the gift of life, having a human experience. But from our conversation, the gift of the understanding of where my experience is. Therefore, where my power lies. Power is not out there.
We all have it.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. And it's funny to think that there's some responsibility with that, but it's a different way of seeing the word responsibility.
Yeah. Everything I experience is down to me. Can't blame, you know what, it makes me laugh that I can't blame anybody else or anything or whatever happens, however dire, because I'm the one that makes up what it means. I'm the one that has the unique experience of my particular reality around anything. Yeah.
So, if you were to give some closing thoughts for anyone watching this who has recently experienced loss or bereavement, or it's been around for a few years and people still feel a bit stuck, unable to move on, what would be your core message to them?
Come and have a conversation. Would be my core message. Explore, be curious. If it seems that we're light-hearted about that, what's been going on, what is a serious topic, it's just that what we see, what we've experienced, makes it less scary, makes it devastating in the moment, but not forever. That spark is always there, and our inner strength is always there. Sometimes we just need somebody to explore and help us find it. We don't do anything, we just have conversations, and people have aha moments, and life changes, and that's amazing, and that's what's available. So if anybody wants a conversation, you can get in touch with me through my website. It's gillianfox.com. There's a pop-up thing that says contact me, let's have a 30-minute Skype conversation like we've just been having, and see where that takes us. And if that takes us to a let's work together, that's cool. And if that was great, Jillian, thank you, that's helped me enough, that's also cool. Whichever way, my job is done.
That's perfect, isn't it? It always starts with a conversation, and I know from my experience, any kind of conversation around where people's experience are coming from, always going to help in some way. Open door. Door that someone might not go into for quite some time, but it's letting them know there are some other options on how to see life. Great. Thank you for your time, Jillian. I'm going to start recording here, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you. Lovely.
Bye for now.